Hello everyone, welcome to the new session of Morphology of the Flowering Plants NCERT revision. This is the second part, and in this part we are going to study about leaves and inflorescence. So moving ahead, morphology of flowering plants. Okay, so here we will first discuss about the leaves. The leaf is a lateral, generally flattened structure borne on the stem. Those leaves are the structure that are attached to the stem part, like this, and they are lateral. Origin is lateral to the stem. Okay, and generally they are flattened structure. There are some exception, but generally they are flattened structure. They are most important vegetative organ for the photosynthesis because they contain chlorophyll pigment in the chloroplast, and chloroplast are present in the leaves cell. There are some other parts that also contain the chloroplast, like sepals. The flower is having the outer wall, that is sepal. In fact, some of the branches that are green in color, that also do the process of photosynthesis. But the major function of leaves is to perform the photosynthesis, to perform the process of photosynthesis. Whereas the sepal primary function is to protect the flower in the case of bud. When the flower is in the case of bud, this sepal protect that. But a part of the protection providing to the bud, they also do the process of photosynthesis. Same with the case of stem also. Stem main function is to keep the plant erect and at a position that all its leaves part get exposed to the sunlight properly. They also bear the flowers, buds, fruits. Okay, but their major function is to get attached to these particular parts of the plant in such a way that they are at a position that they get a proper sunlight, okay, for the leaves. But a part of this, they also do the process of photosynthesis when they are green, basically when the plant is in the form of herb or shrub. A typical leaf consists of three main parts. If we take a leaf, then we get three main parts of the leaf: leaf base, petiole, and lamina. So here, the leaf base, this is the leaf base. This is the leaf base through which the plant is attached to the stem. And there is an extended part that is called as petiole. Leaf base, petiole. And the extended part is in the form of a blade-like structure, which is basically green, flattened green structure. That is called as lamina. So this is the three main structure of the leaf: leaf base, petiole, and lamina. The leaf is attached to the stem by the leaf base and may bear two lateral small leaf-like structures called stipules. Sometime in some plants, at the base, some small appendages like a structure which is green in color is present, and that is called as stipules. Okay. In monocotyledons, the leaf base expands into a sheath covering the stem partially or wholly. Then here you can see this leaf structure. Okay, this is a lamina in the monocotyledons, and this a sheath-like structure totally covers the stem part like this. So this is a sheath. So here, stipule structure and sheath structure is very unique. It is not found in all the plants, but in some plants they are present. In some leguminous plant, very important, in some leguminous plant, the leaf base may become swollen, which is called as pulvinous. Very important. The leaf base becomes swollen. The leaf base becomes swollen. And like this, you can see here, swollen leaf base. And this is called as pulvinous. Pulvinous protect the young axillary bud. So axillary buds are there and they protect that axillary bud. Pulvinous protect that axillary bud. Okay. The petiole help hold the leaf blade to the light. So petiole is the part that is attached with the lamina, or you can say the leaf blade. Now, this petiole is at such a angle that this leaf base should be exposed to the light, coming to the light. Okay. So, petiole helps to hold the leaf blade so that maximum exposure of light should get on the lamina part. The long, thin, flexible petiole allow leaf blades to flutter in winds, thereby cooling the leaf and bringing the fresh air to the leaf surface. So what happened? This petiole is positioned in such a way when air moves, the leaf blade get flatters and it provide a cooling effect to the plant. Okay. The lamina or the leaf blade is green and expanded part of the leaf with veins and veinlets. So here we can see this is the main midrib and here we are having veins. And from the veins we are having numbers of veinlets like this. So lamina or the leaf blade is the green expanded part of the leaf with veins and veinlets. The veins and veinlets are present on the lamina part. There is usually a middle prominent vein which is known as midrib. So in the case of this lamina, in this part, middle part, you will find a more prominent vein. This is the more prominent vein. And that is called as midrib. These are veins. These are also veins. But this vein, which is more prominent and running from the leaf to this end, to the apex end of the leaf, that is called as midrib. So veins provide rigidity to the leaf blade and act as a channel of transport for water, minerals and food materials. Okay, so this is the main midrib, or we can say a main vein, which is called as midrib. And from this midrib, veins originate and moves to the other part of the lamina. Now what happened? This midrib is getting water from this petiole and from this stem region. So water is coming to the stem, then moving to the petiole, then moving to this midrib region. And from the midrib, the water is moving to the vein part. And from this vein, many veinlets originate. So water is moving to this veinlet region even. Okay, so now why this is happening? Because the lamina is, you can say, the part of a leaf which is more concerned for the process of photosynthesis. And for the photosynthesis, two raw material is required. That is carbon dioxide and water. Right? Carbon dioxide and water is required. So from where this carbon dioxide is coming? The leaf surface is having small opening which is called as stomata. Now stomata is there for exchange of gases. Okay, so carbon dioxide is moving inside the leaf through stomata. Now water. Water is absorbed by the roots. From the roots, it's make its channel to the upward through stem, moving to the petiole region of the leaf, then coming to the midrib, and from midrib it is moving to the vein and to the veinlet. So it is reaching to the every part of the leaf. Now water is also available and carbon dioxide is also available. So with the help of these two raw material, lamina part of the leaf can do the process of photosynthesis. Okay, the shape, margin, apex, surface, and the extent of the incision of lamina varies in different leaves. So you can see this part is different in leaves. Apex region is also different in different leaves. Margin is different. Some surface is very smooth, some are having spiny structure, some is having rough structure. Okay, so surface is also different. Moving to the next slide. Venation. We have discussed about the venation, but let us discuss about the type of venation. The arrangement of veins and veinlets in the lamina of leaf is termed as venation. So here we are having the two different leaves. So this is the main vein, which is called as midrib, and here also the main vein is present, which is called as the midrib. Okay, so from midrib you can see here veins originate like this, and in this also the arrangement of vein is quite different like this. So when the veinlet form a network, the venation is termed as reticulate. So here they are forming a network, main, midrib, then veins, and then they give rise to a veinlet. Now this veinlet form a, you can say, a network which is not having any particular arrangement. So they form a mesh like a structure like this, and that is called as reticulate venation. Moving to the next one, the main midrib. The veins are parallel to each other. Here the veins are parallel to each other, and that is why it's got its name, parallel venation. So when the veins run parallel to each other, with the lamina, the venation is termed as parallel venation. Now there is one more thing you must remember. The reticulate venation is the characteristic of dicot plant. It is a characteristic of dicot plant. Okay, and parallel venation is the characteristic of monocot plant. It is a characteristic of a monocot plant. So always you will see if a plant is monocot, like wheat, rice, maize, when you see the leaves of that, then you can find the parallel venation. So this is the main midrib. The veins will be parallel to each other like this in the case of maize, sugarcane. Okay, so all these are monocot plant. But in the case of dicot plant, you will always have a reticulate type of venation. Okay. Leaves of dicotyledonous plant generally possesses the reticulate venation. Just now we have discussed about it, while the parallel venation is the characteristic of a monocotyledonous plant. So please remember this. This is very important. Next, difference between the reticulate and parallel venation. Veinlets are conspicuous and veinlets are inconspicuous. Veinlet form a near network-like structure, but here the network is absent. Instead, they are parallel to each other. Veins are irregularly distributed, and here veins run in a particular fashion, which is called as parallel to one another. Okay. Next, types of leaves. Types of leaves. A leaf is said to be a simple when its lamina is entire or when in size the incision do not touch the midrib. So here we can see a simple leaf like this, a leaf. So this is simple leaf. Simple leaf. Now they said if the lamina is incised, okay, so lamina is incised. I'm drawing one more leaf where the lamina is incised like this. We can see the incision or the depression in the lamina, but this depression is it is not touching to the midrib. This incision is not touching to this part, or this incision is not touching to this part. So again, we can say that this is one lamina. This is one lamina. So again, this is a simple leaf. Okay, but when incision of the lamina reaches up to the midrib, so here you can see this is one leaflet. Actually, this compound leaf were earlier like this only, that is in one leaf. But later what happened? The incision occur here, 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 and this incision touches to the midrib region. And later what happened? This form a small leaf-like structure which is now called as leaflet. So there are number of leaflet, but actually this particular is called as one leaf, and such leaf where the number of leaflet are present is called as compound leaf. It is called as compound leaf because there are many leaflets are there. Okay, so when the incision of the lamina reaches up to the midrib, breaking it into a number of leaflets, then the leaf is called as compound leaf. Always remember this. In simple leaf, there is no incision, whereas, and if the incision is present also, it never reaches up to the midrib region. But in the case of compound leaf, the incision reaches up to the midrib region and forming the leaflet-like structures. Now, if the number of leaflets are present in the leaf, then that particular leaf is called as compound leaf. Okay. Next, a bud is present in the axil of petiole in both simple and compound leaf, but not in the axils of leaflet of the compound leaf. Okay, so if I'm drawing a particular simple leaf here, a simple leaf, then in the axil of this is the petiole region, this is the main branch region, and here in the axil of this leaf, a bud is there. So this is in the case of simple leaf. Now coming to the compound leaf. So I am drawing a compound leaf here. Okay, so these are the leaflets. These are the leaflets, and this is the main branch of it. Like this. So this is a compound leaf. This is a compound leaf. Now in the compound leaf axil, where the axil is present, this is the main branch through which the stem is attached here at the leaf base, and here the axil is there. So this is the bud, axillary bud. Now they are saying the bud is never present in the axil of leaflet. Here the bud will not found. Okay, so but not in the axil of leaflet of the compound leaf. They are present in the axil of simple leaf. The bud is present in the axil of simple leaf as well as the axil of compound leaf, but not in the axil of leaflets of the compound leaf. Okay, next, the compound leaf may be of two types. So we are having two different types of compound leaf. Pinnately compound leaf, a number of leaflets are present on a common axis. So here we can see this is one common axis and we are having the leaflet like this arranged. Okay, so the rachis which represent the midrib of the leaf is as in the case of neem. So this is the rachis or the midrib, and at both the side we are having the leaflets, right? So this is called as pinnately compound leaf, pinnately compound leaf, and these are called as pinna or leaflet, pinna or leaflets. The palmately compound leaves, the leaflets are attached to a common point that is at the tip of the petiole as in the silk cotton. So here what happens, suppose I am drawing a palmately compound leaf, then here we can have like this, leaf are attached at one particular point. Palm like structure. This is the palm. So these are the leaflets which are attached at one particular point. So that is the example of such a palmately compound leaf is silk cotton. Silk cotton. Okay. So neem is the example of pinnately compound leaf and silk cotton is the example of palmately compound leaf. Next, phyllotaxy. This is very important as a examination point of view. Phyllotaxy is the pattern of arrangement of the leaves on the stem or branch. How the leaf are arranged to the branch or the stem. Okay, so that is called as phyllotaxy. Okay, so this is usually of three types: alternate, opposite, and whorl. So as the name indicates, so suppose this is a branch or a stem and these are the leaflet. These are the leaflet arrangement like this. Now I'm drawing one more arrangement. Okay, and like this. So in the first case, you can see the leaflets are attached at one particular point. The leaflets are attached at one particular point, both the side. So this is opposite arrangement. And here in the second case, you can see the leaflet is present here, but the leaflet is not present on the opposite side. In fact, it is present a bit above it on the other side. Next leaflet is again attached a bit above to the other side like this. So this is alternate arrangement. Alternate arrangement. And the third one is whorl. So here you can see a whorl like structure. A whorl, that is all the leaflets are arranged at one particular point and forming a whorl like structure. So this is called as whorled arrangement. In alternate type of phyllotaxy, a single leaf arises at each node in the alternate manner, as in China rose, mustard and sunflower. So you must remember the examples. Alternate arrangement. So there are two alternate arrangement of the leaves is given in this diagram. Okay, same like I have drawn in this one. Alternate arrangement, right? In opposite type of a pair of leaves arises each node and lie opposite to each other, as in Calotropis and guava plant. So here you can see opposite at one particular node. Here also at one particular node. Okay, so this is in the case of Calotropis and guava. If more than two leaves arises at a node and form a whorl, then it is called as whorled arrangement, as in the case of Elstonia. So here we can see at one particular nodal region of the branch, one leaf, two leaf and three leaf arranged. So more than two leaf, it is if it is attached to the node of the branch, then that is called as whorled arrangement. Example is Elstonia, very, very important. Okay, so remember the name of the particular species of the plant which possesses alternate arrangement, opposite arrangement and the whorled arrangement. Now, there are certain modifications of leaf. There are certain modification of leaf, and the leaf modify because they live in a very different environment. So they modify according to survive the plant. Okay, so let us see what are those modifications. Leaf tendrils. In many plants, we can see that the different parts of leaf form tendrils. The leaf tendrils are usually unbranched and devoid of scales. They are of following types. Whole leaf tendrils. Whole leaf changes to a tendrils. So that is in the case of in wild pea plant, that is Lathyrus aphaca, modified to the tendril for the climbing. So here you can see this is a leaf which changes to tendril, and this is called as leaf tendrils for climbing. Okay, so the example is Lathyrus aphaca, which is also called as wild pea. Next is leaflet tendrils. Now whole leaf doesn't changes to you can say tendril, but leaflet, some leaflets changes to tendrils. A few upper leaflets of a pinnately compound leaf of pea, Pisum sativum, very important. That leaflets, now here you can see this is a leaflet, this is a leaflet, this is again leaflet, but here the leaflet, upper leaflets changes to tendril-like structure, tendrils-like structure for the climbing and for the support. Okay, so leaflet tendrils. Next, petiolar tendrils, very, very important. The petiole of the garden nasturtium and Nepenthes, very important. Pitcher plant, okay, changes to tendrils. You are studying the pitcher plant from 4th onwards. Now here you can see this lamina modified to a pitcher like structure which is having an lid above it, and when the any fly come inside it, the lid closes, lots of enzymes secreted and the leaf dies, and they suck all the nitrogenous material which is present in the body of that fly. Now if you see this particular part, this is the petiole, this is the petiole. So here the petiole, you can see a tendril like structure. So petiolar tendrils are present in garden nasturtium as well as Nepenthes. Okay, stipular tendrils. Stipular tendrils, they are found in smilex at the free end. So here we have studied the stipules are present as an appendage at the base of the leaf, right? And in the case of smilex, this stipule modified in the form of tendril-like structure. Okay. So there are different types of tendrils in the case of leaf. Okay. Now comes the inflorescence. Till here we have studied about the leaf. Now comes the inflorescence. When a shoot tip transforms into a flower, it is always solitary, and the arrangement of the flowers on the floral axis is termed as inflorescence. So here we can see the tip of the branch, they give rise to flower. So sometime you can see the flowers are in the bunch, and this is called one single flower, and this is called as inflorescence. This is called as inflorescence. Okay, so depending on whether the apex gets developed into one flower, a flower means one flower, or continues to grow. Okay, so depending upon this, we are having two different types of inflorescence. Two different types of inflorescence. Racemose inflorescence. Racemose. So in racemose type of inflorescence, the main axis continues to grow. So if this is my main axis of a plant, so it gives rise to flower here, it gives rise to flower here, again it gives rise to flower here, flower here, flower here, but this apex is continuously growing. It is not ending with the flower at the apex point. It is continuously growing, and the flowers are coming like this at both the sides. So the flowers are born laterally. So you can see here the flowers are born laterally, not at the apex end, ending the growth of the stem. So it continues to grow. It continues to grow in an acropetal succession. So here you can see this is called acropetal succession. Why? Because the mature flower is at the base and the new flowers is at the apex. So this is the acropetal succession. Racemose inflorescence. Now, just opposite in the case of cymose inflorescence. So here you can see the apex is having one single flower and there is no growth, right? So here we can see a growth on both the side of this main axis, and it again gave rise to a single flower. Now this branch again gave rise to two new flowers. So here we can see the main axis terminates in a flower. There in the case of racemose, there is no termination. Okay, it is continuous growing, but here in the case of cymose inflorescence, the main axis terminates into a flower. This is a major difference between the racemose and cymose inflorescence. So it is limited in growth. It is not growing continuously. It is limited in growth. The flowers born are basipetal order. So here you can see the main or the mature flower is at the tip and the new is like this. So this is the basipetal fashion, just opposite of the racemose inflorescence. Okay. So here are some of the difference between the racemose and cymose inflorescence. Racemose inflorescence, the growing point seldom ends into a flower. The growing point is always growing. Okay. In the case of cymose inflorescence, the growing point always form a flower. So the growing points ends into a flower. Here the growing points always moving upward and giving rise to the lateral flower. The flower arise laterally. The flowers are actually at the terminal position. Terminal position. again terminal. This will give rise again terminal. Okay, so always the flowers are present at the terminal position. The floral axis or the peduncle is monopodial. The floral axis is sympodial or multipodial. So here we are having one single axis, and at the both the side lateral flowers are present like this. But in the case of this terminates, it gave rise to again terminal flower, then it gave rise to like this flower, then again it gave rise to flower. So here this type of arrangement is called as sympodial or multipodial. Okay, the arrangement of flower is acropetal, and the flower in the case of cymose or in the cymose inflorescence we are having basipetal arrangement. So this we have already discussed. So this is all about the leaves morphology of a plant and also the inflorescence. So we will meet one more session, and we will discuss about the flower morphology of flower. Till then, thank you very much.